Dr. Susan Carland, welcome to Izzy Does It.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome to Brunei.
Thank you for having me.
We were just getting to know each other before we hit record, and I wanted to ask you again. So what's your first impression on Brunei so far? Because you landed last night.
Yes.
Okay. So this is technically like day one.
Yeah, not even 24 hours.
Not even 24 hours.
Very fresh.
Okay.
Well, you'll be shocked to hear that I find it quite hot.
Yeah.
So that
surprising.
is definitely, I'm enjoying the food immensely already. I've eaten a lot so far, and that's been very pleasant.
Yeah.
The people are lovely, so friendly, so smiley, so that's lovely. I visited one of the big mosques this morning. It was beautiful. Obviously, I should have expected this, but I don't think it registered just how much water there would be.
Yeah.
So that's been really lovely,
Okay.
you know, just how on the water you are.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. And I'm looking forward to seeing some more before I go home.
Yeah, I hope you get to see more because we're technically where you went to, because that's the Bandar area, so that's the city area. So the city is located close to the water side of Brunei. Yeah, and the mosque that you went to just now, was it the one in Bandar as well, SOAS?
SOAS, yes.
Okay, yeah. So prior to coming to Brunei, did you know a lot about Brunei before this? What did you hear, or your?
I didn't know much.
Okay.
I knew about the royal family.
Okay.
I knew it was a Muslim country.
Yeah.
I knew it was a very proud country.
Yeah.
And a strong sense of identity. And I knew about the water villages and not much more.
Oh, okay, interesting. So it's like sort of like a blank canvas. So when you get here, you don't expect too much.
Which,
so,
it was also sort of intentional. I didn't want to do too much reading before I came and then come with preconceived ideas. I wanted Brunei to reveal itself to me.
Yeah. That's very interesting because I did a little bit of research on you before this interview because I just need to know enough about you just to get curious, because that's how I conduct my interviews with people. It's best if I don't know too much about them.
Right.
So similar to you, intentionally not wanting to know more about Brunei, that's how I do with my guests. I don't want to know a lot about them so that we're here to get to know each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right?
exactly.
So in your own words, please introduce yourself.
Just so your audience knows, I have no idea what the questions were going to be, so I don't have a pre-prepared answer for this. Well, my name is Susan Carland. I am an academic at Monash University where I specialise in Sociology of Religion. So I do a lot of research, particularly on the Muslim community in Australia, which is very different to the Muslim community here. I am a mother. I've got a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old. I am a wife. I think that's about it. There's not a lot of interesting things about me. Maybe more will become apparent in the course of the interview.
One of the things that is well known about you is that you were not born a Muslim.
That's right.
I think a lot of people will find that very interesting, and especially now looking at you here. And I watched a podcast of you with the Sufi brothers.
Oh, right.
Just last night. So seeing you here is a bit surreal. Yeah, because I was like, what is this lady all about, right? So I wanted to understand. So I know a little bit of your story, but I want to also hear it from your mouth, also for the audiences who may have not watched the podcast. The interesting thing that caught my attention was you shared that you had a strong sense of knowing that there was a God, a higher power. And this was before you even discovered Islam. Take us back to that time when you were first sort of aware, or how did it even come to your mind in the first place?
To be interested in Islam?
Yeah. Or even the idea of there's a God. Yeah. Because I know that's also because you grew up in a Christian household. So maybe also that's why.
Yeah.
But not specifically which one, right?
I think I always had an internal sense of there being a God. That was just something that felt true to me, and even when I was very little.
And was this shared between all your families?
My family went to church,
okay,
so there was that. They weren't particularly religious, but we'd go to church on Sundays. But it was when I was a teenager I started to wonder, why do I believe what I do? Is it because I think it's true, or is it just because this is what I've been raised to believe? And so I decided to look into different religions, except Islam. because I didn't know much about Islam, but what I thought I knew, I thought it looked sexist and outdated and barbaric, all the standard Western stereotypes. This was pre-September 11 as well. This was a long time ago. So there also wasn't a lot of information about Islam. There wasn't a very high level of religious literacy about Islam in Australia. But what I thought I knew, I was like, absolutely not. But I decided I wanted to look into different religions just to see, well, what makes sense to me. But to my surprise, I would keep stumbling across information about Islam. So I would turn on the TV and there'd be a documentary about Islam, or I'd open the newspaper and there'd be an interview with a Muslim family. And I thought, that's weird. And as I started to read more and learn more, I realized Islam wasn't what I thought it was, that there was a lot more to Islam than I thought that I knew. And so I thought, well, I'm going to look into what does this religion actually say about itself, not what do I see people doing in the name of Islam or what sensationalist media says it is. Yeah. What does the religion say about itself? So I was in year 12, which is the final year of high school in Australia, when you're supposed to be studying for your final year exams. And I read my way through Riyadh Salihin instead and was trying to understand what does this religion actually teach. And then it was when I was in, I think, first or second year university, I was 19, and I just realized, I think this is true. Like, I've read enough, and this actually, to my surprise, almost resisted. I didn't want to be Muslim. I didn't want to be Muslim because it looked hard in terms of I knew my family wouldn't be happy. I wasn't living in a society where Islam was the norm. In fact, it was viewed very negatively. So there were all these reasons I didn't want to be Muslim. Changing religions is a big thing as well, but I was convinced that this was true. I couldn't deny that this was the religion that I wanted to embrace, even though I had all these reasons I didn't want to. The fact was this was true. To me, that I believed that this was true. And so while it was going to be difficult and inconvenient, I couldn't not embrace Islam. So when I was 19, I became Muslim.
There's a lot of genuine curiosity there because us here at Bruneians, most of us were born in the religion. And I think for us, most of us, we sort of take that for granted. So hearing your story, especially like also like listening to your story on the podcast as well, is very intriguing because on top of just taking it for granted, and I think also I'm pretty sure you come across this too, there's a lot of interpretations of how Islam or a Muslim person should or shouldn't be, right? And that's what fascinates me the most, and I just can't wait to hear what your thoughts on it, especially when you're a strong advocate for feminism and Islam. There's a social cohesion there that I remember you mentioning. There shouldn't be a separation between being a feminist and also being a Muslim woman, right? Because I think the idea most people have, especially here as well, because we're quite whitewashed here in Brunei, where we have like, we're also westernized. So some people's idea of what a feminist is often clashed with what being a Muslim woman is. So I think I want to know more about your thoughts on that. How do you see them being cohesive or which parts do you see they may clash as well?
Well, I guess the first question I would ask you is, how do you define feminism?
From my personal experience here living in Brunei, or also as myself, I am very fortunate because I grew up in a majority female household. So I have a single mom. And I have two sisters. So obviously my mom, I look up to her, and she's like, to me, an Amazon warrior princess. She's able to raise 3 kids on her own. So I didn't have that many male figures in my life. So my best friends are also female. So I've the thing is, but that made me ignorant to what females actually go through. So when I have conversations with my female friends at workplace, they say, oh, they're often overlooked when it comes to promotions and stuff like that. Or when they are like assertive, they're being called the B word. People don't want to work with them. But when it's a guy, it's like, oh, they are able to command respect. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm able to articulate how I would describe feminism, because I've always, for me, like, I've always been surrounded by women and I've always like looked up to them. So maybe that makes me ignorant a little bit, But then again, it's through these conversations that I'm having with my friends and hopefully with you as well, that I want to understand more of how maybe I can be of help or an ally. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I ask that, and that was, really interesting to hear. The reason I asked that question is I think everyone has a different definition of feminism.
Yeah.
So when we say that faith and feminism can coexist, or you can be a Muslim and a feminist, if we are defining that totally differently, we can end up disagreeing on things when we don't even agree on what the term means. So for someone, if you say, what's a feminist? And they go, well, that's a man hater who wants to destroy the family and hates religion. That's what I think a feminist is. And then you might have someone say, well, I think what you said, for example, is feminism is about equity and women being given respect. They're totally different things. So I think how we define that term is really important. And I think certainly, I think about the research that I've done. I think in the Muslim world, feminism is a very loaded term.
Yeah.
It's the F word.
Yeah.
And I understand why. I think, the reality is in certain parts of the Muslim world, if we think of the Muslim world as having a collective memory, there are absolutely times when feminism went hand in hand with colonialism, and it was seen as this Western import that was forced on countries and communities and societies that devalued their religion, that devalued the role of family and the role of motherhood, that told women they shouldn't be wearing hijab anymore, women who wanted to wear the hijab. So I can see why there is this memory that's like, we're not interested in that. That's not our thing. And I think that's completely fair and valid. But I also think for some women that I've spoken to in my research, they say, well, we believe that Allah has given women inherent rights in Islam. Obviously, Allah's given men rights as well. Allah's given humans rights, and there are certain rights for women and certain rights for men. And for the women that I've interviewed have said, the area where we get upset is when we feel the rights that God gave us are being taken away. We're not asking for anything strange or extreme or unusual or outside of Islam. What we're asking for is the rights that Allah gave women. That's what we're pushing for. If Allah has given us those rights, why shouldn't we have them? This is actually a religious matter for them. So there are those Muslim women as well that see the reason they see their faith and feminism as totally entwined is because it is a religious argument for them. So there are those women as well. And then there are all these other different types of women and approaches to feminism. And of course there are Muslim women that completely reject feminism. And I have no problem with that. I don't criticize that at all. I think there are very valid criticisms we can make of feminism. But I think we need to remember as Muslims, in the same way that we get frustrated when people paint us with a very broad brush and say all Muslims are this, all Muslims are, the angry shouting terrorist, for example, that awful stereotype of Muslims. We know that that's not true. We know there is a diversity of ways of being Muslim and beautiful, peaceful, logical ways of being Muslim. And we get frustrated when we're reduced to this caricature that just doesn't make sense and isn't based in truth. I think we need to be very careful as Muslims about doing that with things like feminism as well, that we don't reduce people who identify as feminists as straw man arguments, and ask them, well, what does that mean to you? When you say you're a feminist, what does that mean? And how do you reconcile that with your faith? And, we might learn something.
Have you always been inquisitive and curious-minded? Because you mentioned just now, right? Going back to when you were 19, you were curious about why do I believe in this and that, and you started researching stuff. Have that always been in you?
I think so. I think that's why I became an academic. I think that's why I ended up doing my job at university. I did a science degree and an arts degree at university. And when I finished, I couldn't decide which area do I want to go into. Should I focus more on my science degree, maybe work in a lab? Should focus more on my arts degree? What should I do? And in the end, I decided to follow sociology, and that's where I went. But I loved staying at university because I loved asking questions and then finding out the answers. I know this might sound strange. I love being proven wrong. I find that really exhilarating. What benefit is it to find out that I'm right about something? Well, I already knew that. But if you come to me and say, actually, did you know this thing that you thought was true? Here's all the evidence where it's actually something else. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now I've learned something. Now this has opened up a window in my mind. So I think I've always been like that, and I think that's why I ended up becoming an academic, because we just spend all our day answering random questions.
Yeah. Is there something that, like, how do you cultivate that kind of mindset? Like, you know, especially as an academic where I'm pretty sure like you hear a lot of things, but how do you stay open to the possibility of what you've believed for so long turned out to be, what you believe something to be right, so turned out to be wrong. Yeah.
I think what it requires of us is intellectual humility. We need to be willing to admit that we're wrong and not hold so tightly to our ideas that we refuse to change our minds. Yeah, and I think part of it, I don't know if it's like this in Brunei, but in Australia we have this awful practice where a politician will say, we're going to do this thing, or this is my party's opinion or whatever, and then maybe more information comes and they change their mind and go, actually, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do this. And the public absolutely excoriates them. Oh, look at them flip-flopping. They don't know what they're doing. We should be rewarding that. We should be saying, I'm so glad I have a politician that when more information came, you're willing to change your mind instead of staying with a course you knew was wrong. But I feel like our society makes us feel embarrassed to admit that we were wrong, and we don't want to. We feel that that's humiliating, and it is hard. It's hard to go, I think I was wrong about that. But if we enter every conversation thinking, you know, and I certainly didn't invent this. Actually, it was a famous Muslim scholar that said, I go into every conversation assuming that I'm right, but being open to the fact that I'm wrong. Then that's the most fruitful way, I think, to approach any topic at all.
When you mentioned earlier as well, like you were finding out about like Islam, right? Did you have any external help other than your own research?
So remember, I'm extremely old. So this was a long time ago. This was pre-internet.
I think we are from the same era.
I know. Okay, so everyone watching this podcast, like, when? How did you live? So I couldn't Google. There was no Googling. What is Islam? So I was at university, and I found this group of Muslim women on my campus, and I just went up to them and said, I think I'm interested in Islam. Can I just learn some more with you? And they had some classes on campus, so I'd attend the classes. But there weren't, this was, 100 years ago, there weren't many good books in English about Islam. The few that we could get were really badly published, the pages were always going the wrong way. I don't know why we did that. So there was not a lot of information. It was really, I spent some time, like I said, with the women at my university, learning about Islam through them and asking questions. And it was just, I think also just time. It just took a process of working through things. And I still remember, it was so long ago that I think I'd either just become Muslim or I was planning to become Muslim, and I thought, well, I need to find a Muslim organization. So I opened the phone book. I don't know. Did you ever have a phone book in Brunei? Okay.
We call it the Yellow Pages.
Okay, yeah. Do you still, no one uses that anymore. Now we have Google. Yeah. So I opened the phone book and just to I for Islam.
Oh, God.
And I just looked up, what is Islam? And it said Islamic Society of something. And I just rang them and said, hi, I've just become Muslim. Do you have like a class or something? Like, it was this organic a way of trying to find out about Islam and find my way.
I don't know how you feel about this question, but can you share, and I don't know how much you want to go into specifics, but can you share how, like, what was it between Christian and Islam? Like, there has to be something that you didn't resonate with in your previous, lifetime.
I had a really positive Christian upbringing.
Yeah.
So the church, I went to 2 different churches and they were really positive. The people were lovely. I honestly couldn't have had a better Christian upbringing, particularly when I was a teenager. The staff at the church, because by that point when I was a teenager, I started going to a different church to my parents. I was on my faith journey. Okay. And so I started going to a different church to my parents, and the staff was so lovely at that church. They really looked after me. They were so supportive and just the best examples that you could have. So it wasn't so much that there was any negative or failing in my Christian experience. There were just some questions that I felt weren't being answered for me. I think the the Islamic view of theology made more sense to me. I think it was just something that resonated with the nature of who God was. Really made a lot of sense. So the absolute monotheism of Islam made a lot of sense to me. I think that was the greater thing. It was just in many ways, my Christian upbringing created something of a foundation that then helped build me towards becoming Muslim.
Yeah, it because you mentioned earlier, you always believed in like God, but you just, found Islam. Yeah, like you said, the better, he had answers for you more. Yeah. I understand that your mom passed away.
Yeah.
So sorry to hear that. But can you, if you don't mind, taking us back to when you broke the news to her or maybe your family about you? Because I remember hearing the story and I was like, that must be really scary, not just for you, but also for them. And I completely empathize as well. And I like how you shared that now you as a mother, you understood why she reacted the way she did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But to those who don't know the story, do you mind?
Yeah. So
us?
I'd become Muslim, I was 19 and I wanted to tell I actually didn't want to tell my family. I was really scared about how they were going to react. I knew they wouldn't be happy. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of information about Islam in the public in Australia, and what there wasn't very positive.
Yeah.
So I was very worried about how my mum was going to react. I also knew that I wanted to wear the hijab or the tudung pretty much straight away.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew it was going to be in her face.
Okay.
I didn't think my mum would like the hijab either. So I was quite nervous about telling her. I think I'd just taken my shahada and I went home and I thought, I can't. I'm too scared. I'll just leave it. I'll just live secretly as a Muslim for a couple of weeks and build up my courage and then tell her. And so I said to Mum, so that night after I took my shahada, I said, what are we having for dinner? And she said pork chops. And I'm like, well, I guess I will now have to tell you that I am Muslim. So that decision was made for me. So I told her, and look, she was nice. She gave me a hug, but I could tell she was really upset. I could tell she was. And it was a really hard period for quite a bit of time, a few years in the beginning. My mum in particular was really unhappy about it. But, now that I'm a parent, my kids are 18 and 22.
Yeah.
I realize now, first of all, how young I would have been. I thought when I became Muslim at 19, well, I'm an adult, I will make my own way and do my own thing, and clearly mature enough to make this decision. But now I look at my 18 and 22-year-old and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're babies. You don't know anything. So I realized, I think maybe my parents thought or perhaps hoped it was just a phase that I was going through. She's young and idealistic and she'll do this and then she'll leave and come back. But I can understand now, like if my kids came home, one of my children came home and said, I've joined this new religion that you don't know much about, but what you do know looks terrible. I want you to be happy for me. I'd be very worried too. Yeah. I'd be really worried about my kids and their future and their values, everything. So now that I'm a mother, I can understand how my parents must have felt.
And especially when you usually seek like solace in like your family, right? When you go through something like this, especially like life-changing. Wait, before I get into that, how did you do your shahada? Was it just on your own, or did you meet anyone from the community and like did a whole formal way of converting? Or
so I told you about the women at the university that I knew. So I told them I think I want to take my shahada tomorrow, and they're great, we've got our religious class, we'll do it there, everything's great. And then that night one of the women in the group called me and said, look, I've spoken to our teacher. I don't know what, maybe I have no idea how your audience will respond to this. They'll go one of two ways. They'll either say, yes, that was the right answer, or wow, I wouldn't have done that. Anyway, you can take a vote at the end.
Okay.
One of the women in the group called me and said, look, I've spoken to our religious teacher and she said, it's really important you take your shahada right now, because what happens if you're hit by a bus and you die? Oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So we on the phone, she said, you need to do it now, and then we'll do it again tomorrow in a formal ceremony, but we should do it right now in case you die. And I'm like, all right, okay, yep, good idea. So I did it on the phone. with my friend, and then the next day I think I went into university and I did a little formal thing and whatever.
Oh, that's hilarious. The fact that what if
I
you get
mean,
hit by a
well, what if I had? Maybe it's good advice. So I did it once on the phone and then once in the
gosh, that's insane. Oh my God, this is definitely a good story. But also one thing, you said you immediately wanted to wear the hijab, right?
Yeah.
Share with us what your thought process on that is, because did you see it as like something that is like non-negotiable for you? Because even like there are Muslim women who don't wear the hijab. So tell at that tender age as well, like share me your thought process on what made you decide.
So I think for me, obviously I was looking into Islam for a while before I became Muslim, and the women stuff was very much part of my research because it's such a stereotype in the West that Muslim women are oppressed and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to understand for myself, well, what does Islam really teach? And then of the rulings that there are regarding women, why are they the way they are? What's the sense behind them? What's the wisdom behind them? And obviously hijab is a big one. Yeah. So I looked a lot into the hijab. So by the time I became Muslim, I was already convinced about the hijab argument. I sort of thought I know, like you said, there are a lot of Muslim women that don't wear the hijab. And, either there's the opinion that it's not compulsory or they're not ready or whatever, that's fine. But for me, I was more convinced by the scholarly arguments that it was compulsory. And so I thought, well, it's compulsory. And then I was convinced by the arguments for it. And so I think, and I'm glad now that I did everything all at once, that I took my shahada and I put hijab on at once, because it was just everything all at once. I think if I'd become Muslim and then 2 years later had decided to put it on, it would have been another issue with my family and friends that they just kind of got used to, well, you're Muslim, but nothing looks like it's really changed and maybe this is okay. And well, now why do you have to wear the hijab where it's just everything all at once?
Yeah, it's like you just ripping it off. Like,
that's exactly right.
And then just let it heal.
Yeah. And I think just the rulings of modesty of dress for men and women made a lot of sense to me. In Islam, I saw the social value of it. Yeah. I like the Islamic emphasis of modesty for everyone, of character and dress. I saw the value in it and it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. How long do you think it took for you and your, especially your family, your friends to, for lack of a better word, like be okay or like accept the fact that there's no going back now?
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's serious about this and this is how it's going to be.
I think it was when I got married, I think that was probably a point where they're like, oh, maybe she won't change her mind now. That's sort of a sticking point, I guess. Once you're married, it's sort of things become more embedded.
Yeah. How old did you get married?
I became Muslim at 19 and then I think I got married at 21 or 22 and then I had my first baby at 23. So just bang, 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 bang.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think by then, we had our baby. I was still wearing the hijab. I was still Muslim. We were raising our child Muslim. I think by then maybe my parents were like, this is going to hang around. Yeah. And then, I've been Muslim now longer than I haven't. I've been Muslim for a really long, I think they believe now that I'm not going to change my mind, inshallah. But yeah, I'm not sure if and when they eventually gave up hope that I was going to turn around.
Yeah. But from your side, have you ever had doubts after?
It's interesting. I've never had doubts about Islam. The truth of it. Yeah. Obviously, there have been like rulings that I've kind of been like, I've sort of gone, I don't understand this, or why would that be, or I struggle with this. Interpretations, but never about the genuine truth of Islam. The La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, I haven't doubted that. And honestly, there have been times where, like I said to you, it would have been so much easier not to be Muslim, but I am convinced of the truth of it. And so, even when things have been difficult, I've never wavered on that reality.
Okay.
And I think the important thing for me, and this is what I say to people who speak to me about as well, if you have doubts about anything, is keep looking for answers, because it's when we have questions about this ruling or this opinion that we don't get addressed, that they just fester and they start to gnaw away at the anchor of our faith, they become a problem. So keep asking, ask an imam. And if you're not satisfied with the answer, ask someone else, ask another imam, ask another scholar. You know, the Islamic scholarly world is an ocean. And there would have been people before you with the same question and same confusion or concerns. This would have been answered somewhere. You need to keep digging into it. And for me, what was really important as a convert was that it was my questioning mind that brought me to Islam. So I can't just shut it off as soon as I become Muslim. This was what brought me here. You know, I heard a Muslim teacher say once that even angels ask. Even the angels ask in the Quran, ask Allah a question, why would you put human beings on earth? Like even they ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, particularly if we're doing it to try to understand. So we should feel okay about asking questions. And if an answer just, you feel like, but that didn't actually answer my question, it's okay to keep asking.
Interesting when you said that about like asking questions, right? Because I don't know if this is an isolated event, but when I was younger, we have Ugama school here, so religious education. So it's separate than our primary academic subjects, right? So it's another institution. I just remember, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before, and a lot of people shared that they have the same experiences when we were little. Obviously, as kids, right? The level of curiosity is like insane. We keep asking questions and stuff like that, but it was mostly shut down. So I think that's why a lot of people, including myself at one point, we were lost. Like we didn't understand what Islam was. Basically, what was instilled in us was fear more than compassion, the fearful side. Like if you do this, sin. It's a sin. It's a sin, this, sin, that. Basically, it made some of us or many of us believe that we're living sins. So even if we like pray 5 times a day, like it wouldn't count because, you know, our sins were greater than that. When you said like keep asking questions, now it's like, oh my gosh, like if only there were someone like that when we were younger to tell us that it's okay. And I think for most people, right, especially educators, I don't know why they feel the pressure to have the answers. I think it's better if they just share to their children, their students, that they're also figuring it out at the same time. Like, or maybe let's figure this out together. Yeah, because just to also share with you my journey is that I was not a practicing Muslim, but I've always believed in, you know, Allah's existence. And I think also because, you know, my mom is also like religious. I discovered Islam at a later age, and alhamdulillah, because of the people I hang out with. My friends, they're not like, first impression when you look at them, you won't guess that they pray, or like you don't even expect them to be like pious. And they're not, I don't think they're pious, but they practice. So whenever we would hang out and it would time for like Asar or Maghrib, we would take a break and they would pray and I would just follow them. So that happened all the time. And I was like, so there is such a thing as like balance. Like I can be the person that I am right now and not have to grow a beard or wear a songkok and sound like an ustaz, and I can still be a practicing Muslim. So I was like, I found out that balance and I started like easing into it, and I slowly found myself back into Islam. So like the thing is like, I asked you just now about your impressions of Brunei, right? Yes, we're a Muslim country, but there's so many of us who are lost. Yeah.
And I don't think that's unique to Brunei. It would be the same with Muslims in Australia. As well. I think this is the human condition. I think humans are meaning-seeking creatures and we are looking for answers. And I think, you know, you talk about little you, that was your fitra, was looking. You were trying to search and understand. And so in Australia, I actually started a madrasa, a Saturday school, a Muslim Saturday school, specifically because so many of the religious schools, the weekend religious schools for Muslims, were taught through the model that you said, where it's just like, this is the answer, stop asking questions, everything's haram. And so I started a madrasa in Australia because we had this same problem in my community, which is very culturally diverse, very different opinions about Islam in the Muslim community in Australia. But one uniting thing seemed to be that parents would say either the way they were raised when they would go to madrasa would just be like, it is what it is, stop asking questions, Allah said so, so stop asking, that's haram, that's haram, that's haram. And what was interesting, and it broke my heart as the person who started this madrasa, was we would interview the parents who wanted to bring their kids to our madrasa. And I would say, so I need you to understand our madrasa is different. We are all about rahmah, mercy, and we're about critical thinking.
Yeah.
That's the principle here.
Okay.
Mercy and critical thinking. So when your children come, so I would teach little 5 and 6 year olds, when they will ask questions, I will never shut them down for that. And I will never say, how dare you? And the number one thing we start when they're little, we do not speak about hell until they're 12. From this age, it's all we are setting the foundation of loving Allah.
Yeah.
That's the foundation they have to have. So when they're older and it's age appropriate, you need to teach them about consequences and the akhirah and all of those things. But a 6-year-old will only be frightened by stories of Jahannam, and it will not motivate them. If we put in a good foundation of the mercy of Allah and loving, Allah loves you so much. Allah is Al-Wudud. Allah is Ar-Rahman. That will be their foundation. So when they get to 12 or 13 or whatever, and we start talking to them about consequences, they're like, I love Allah. I know Allah wants the best for me. So of course I want to pray. And of course it makes sense to me. This is the bedrock that they will go back to. And the critical thinking, because the reality is, particularly in a country like Australia, they're in a secular education which encourages critical thinking. We cannot tell our kids, go to school and ask all the questions you want, but when it comes to religion, switch your mind off. Because they need to be able to, and also our children need to be able to say, but why can't I drink alcohol? If we can't give them an answer, we never want our children to think, well, Islam doesn't make sense. There are very good reasons for all of these rules, the things we should and shouldn't do. And we should be able to share them with our kids. This is not nonsensical. This makes so much sense. And we need to be able to convey them to our kids. So when mum and dad aren't around and the kids say, I don't want to drink, for myself, because I know this is why Allah has said I shouldn't drink. I've internalized this for myself, and I don't want to do it for me. This makes sense for me. I think a teacher once told me, the Sirat al-Mustaqim is straight, but it's wide. There are different ways to be Muslim, as you were talking about. It's not narrow. There's a lot of diversity and legitimate ways to be a good Muslim. And in the end, we are all fumbling and stumbling and getting it wrong. I get it wrong 1,000,000 times a day.
Yeah.
But if we can come back to this foundation of who is Allah really, who is the God that I'm worshipping really, all the other stuff falls into place. All the ibadah and all the requirements, that just falls in place.
Due to unforeseen circumstances, we had to continue our conversation another day and another location. Thank you to a person who refused to be mentioned for this amazing place. Yeah, so there was a hikmah that we got cut off that day because now we're here. It's completely vibes.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
It's pretty harmonic. Like perfect for housing our conversation.
Agree.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into where we left off, right?
Yeah.
So just to recap, our last conversation was about, I remember asking you about like feminism in Islam. And also you shared that you have a class every Saturday, right?
Yeah, I used to run for little kids.
For little kids. And then you don't talk about what's halal or haram until they are 12 and above.
Yeah, until they're older. In the beginning, it's just all about loving Allah. Allah loves you, mercy. Yeah, building that foundation.
When I was reflecting on our conversation, I was like, it would be so great to have someone like you or a figure like yourself when I was a lot younger. But then again, I feel like even when we were younger, I don't think our minds could fully understand Islam. I think it needs to be further developed for us to have these types of conversations, right? It's not just one specific way to become a Muslim. That's like a whole
the Sirat al-Mustaqim is straight, but it's wide.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when we were taught, when we were little, like there's only one specific way to do it, right? So that's what I appreciate the most. Now, I want to know, why is it so important for you to do what you do now? Like, why are you doing all of this?
Good question. I'm not sure. I feel like a lot of the work that I do, I kind of stumbled into because there was either a social need that I identified or people were asking me about it. So, for example, pretty much as soon as I became Muslim, people wanted to ask me, but how can you be a Muslim when it's so sexist? So I felt like I had to have answers about, well, is it sexist? Like, what's really going on here, and how do I answer this question or that question? As soon as I became Muslim, I was expected to be this expert on gender issues in Islam, political history, the Sunni Shia split, like why is Iran doing, like I was expected as a teenager everything. Just to have the answers to these things. And so I think particularly with my PhD and the work looking at Muslim women and sexism, Muslim women's empowerment, that was precipitated by certainly the questions I was getting from the non-Muslim community, but also issues within my own community, within the Muslim community as well, and the community grappling or not grappling with these issues and how they understood the role of faith in that. And then now the work that I'm doing on Islamophobia in Australia, again, is this sort of social need, this recognizing that I started doing this work years ago and realizing that there is a problem here, there is a disconnect here. But I do have to say that often, like I said to my husband not long ago, why did I not just study like sand? Like, why is one of my specialties something that's not just, it's not politically controversial. Yeah. No one has an opinion on it. It's you publish a paper, no one cares. Why did I keep choosing these issues that are so hot button and controversial and everyone has an opinion on it and people get mad about it? I should have chosen something, much more benign, but here I am. And I guess, if we think about it, that everything happens for a reason, everything is mapped out. Yeah. I'm here for a reason. Allahu alam what that is, but this is where I am. So what is the best I can do in this situation?
Yeah, I agree so much, which is why like one of my reflections, like it's so amazing how we manage to sit down now and having this conversation. Yeah. Like also, I want to quickly thank the Australian embassy as well for linking us. Yeah. The moment I found out who you were, I was like, I need to sit down with this woman and have a conversation. Like this is a very much needed conversation. Especially like it's so common for Muslim born to, probably have the same work as you do. But because they're Muslim born, it's like, but how do you know, because you were born Muslim. Yeah. But it's different when it's someone who's a revert. Here in Brunei, we call it a revert. Yeah. But for you said you converted, right?
Well, I use both terms interchangeably. Okay. I know that people use both. I understand the argument for both. So,
So it's different when it's a revert.
Yeah.
So people were like, okay, at least we know like you studied and there's a reason why as well. So I think your voice is, for me personally, is more profound. Yeah.
Don't you think though, and this is something I say to my kids. So my children are 18 and 22. So they're definitely older now. And something I always said to them is, obviously they were born into a Muslim family and we raised them Muslim, but I said there will come a point where you have to choose Islam for yourself. Yeah. Even as a born Muslim, there will come a point where you have to make the decision that I'm doing this and continue with this, not because mum and dad say I have to, or that this is who we are, but this is something that I'm choosing for myself. At some point, all Muslims, I think, whatever age that is, they come to a point where it's internalized and it's a choice, as opposed to something that's just externally expected.
I have never heard anyone say that before, especially a parent. Most parents would be so fearful and make sure that Islam is like their religion no matter what. Whether you're practicing Muslim or not, you just have to be Muslim. Don't make my life a living hell. Yeah, just be Muslim. But what you said is like really incredible. How you have that level of trust and faith to your children to just like, you're born Muslim, but I want you to pick this religion for yourself.
Oh, absolutely, because I want them to worship Allah, not me.
Yeah.
It has to be, that's what it has to be. And of course, as a parent, that's scary. Yeah. Of course, every parent, we want our children to have the values we have and we raise our kids in the way that we do because we think it's right. And the trickiest thing, the hardest act of letting go for me as a parent has been being a parent. That we have this tight fist about every other aspect of our lives and realizing very early on that your children's spiritual journey is their own. And that's with them and Allah. And of course we hope that it will turn out a certain way, but we don't know that. And what I realized is that the goal has to be, and this was a big mental shift for me, that the goal for me actually isn't raising godly children. Okay. It is being a godly parent. And the distinction is that I ultimately do not control what my children turn out to be and what choice. I will hope that I will guide and inform and that they will come to me, and that I hope that they will have the values that I've instilled in them and raised them with to see as valuable and meaningful and all of those things. But in the end, that is what will happen is between them and Allah. Allah has written that. And I think it's because I got to know parents who were older than me, Muslim parents. The same parent would raise children in the same house, and some would be very religious and some not at all. And it's like, what happened there? Same parents, same house. And you realize really quickly that some kids, for whatever reason, it's a different journey. And it's not to say it doesn't matter and you don't care. And of course, we want, we say dua that things will turn out the way that they will, but I don't get to control what my children become. All I can control is myself and my behavior. And so what I often think is that, particularly when our children are little and they're learning about religion, is that when they think about the example of the sunnah, they will think about their parents first. How did their parents live out the sunnah? And if that was beautiful and gentle and merciful and nourishing and all those things that we like, then that will be the map that sticks with them. So I was just like, well, that's what I'm going to be. I want them to see that how I treat them, but also how I behave myself as a Muslim. When I'm tested, how do I behave? When things are hard and nothing is going well in my life and awful things are happening, they see me going to the prayer mat and, doing things even when it's hard or whatever it is. And that hopefully that is sowing the seeds more than me saying, you must do, you must do, you must do.
I want to go back to this, your relationship with children later on. But when you said just now about you studying something that's so political and so a lot of people have opinions on it and you receive some kind of hate or backlash, I would understand if you receive backlash or hate from non-Muslims. I want you to share about that as well, but I want to share mostly if you've ever received hate backlash from Muslims themselves, especially.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and what kind? Yeah, so from both sides, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. From a religious point of view, if there were people who just disagree with my my interpretation of things, or why are you airing our dirty laundry? For example, that's a big one. Like if the Muslim community, this is an interesting thing that when I was interviewing women for my PhD, Muslim women about my PhD, was looking at the way Muslim women fight sexism within the Muslim community. I talked to women in Australia and overseas. And they would give the example that, one woman I spoke to said, we're organising like an employment workshop. A panel. We want to have a panel discussion about employment issues for Muslim women, and it can be hard for Muslim women to get employment, and sometimes their husbands don't want them to work or they feel that they shouldn't, and they can become quite vulnerable if they don't work or can't work. And so we want to have this panel, and we want to have you want to make sure we invite imams to come and speak, so they can contribute. And they can hear from the women as well. And we want to invite the media to get some coverage on this. And this is an issue in our community. And then there's this real tension for the woman who was organising it, because she said, if we host this panel and people say things that reinforce the negative stereotypes that non-Muslims have, that will generate Islamophobia. If we don't have this panel and we don't speak about this issue openly, these problems fester in our community. We're not addressing them. But then we host it, and then people in our community say, why are you airing our dirty laundry? Why do you want non-Muslims to know that the problems we have? Why are you stirring up trouble? So there's this bind that Muslim women are in, that it's this double bind where they're sort of constricted on both sides of trying to tackle an issue, and they're constricted within their own community, but then the issues outside the community make it hard to talk about as well. And that happens in a lot of things, talking about domestic violence, all these issues. When I spoke to Muslim women about it, some would say, yeah, I'm really concerned about that. I don't want to air our dirty laundry. But others would say, my commitment is to haqq. My commitment is to the truth. This is a problem in our community. We can't sweep it under the rug. You sweep it under the rug, it festers. We have to address it. I'm not going to be... I'm not going to address this social problem because I'm worried about what other people will think. That's not a healthy way for our community to be. But that is certainly an issue as well, that people, and I think And I don't know, maybe it's different here in Brunei, but in Australia, I think the Muslim community can feel quite under siege. We can feel like we're always being attacked. And so why would you want to do more that would bring about in negative attention? But the problem is then that means we have these issues we just never address.
Yeah. And it's like probably about time that we address those issues, right?
Right.
When you said like, yeah, a lot of women feel like they don't want to air out their dirty laundry here. If you are you familiar with the term aib?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hear it a lot.
Yeah, it's shameful.
Yeah, when people are encouraged, especially women, to speak up about like domestic violence or sexual abuse they've endured, maybe family member or their husbands, it's like I'd rather not air their aib. But what you said was very important too. Like it's not about airing dirty laundry. It's all about your intention and your niyat. If it's to enforce your haq, then I think Allah wouldn't want you to suffer.
Right.
Right? No. I'm pretty sure He wouldn't want that for anybody.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I appreciate when you mentioned that, so that more people would hopefully.
It takes I mean, obviously it would take a lot of courage for women to do that. But I think we can use the aib argument as a weapon to sort of shut things down.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're doing anyone any favors with that either.
If you were to for example, like redo everything, like when you were 19 and figuring out about Islam, right? Because a lot of us, I shared with you the last time we spoke, I'm myself rediscovering Islam as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people at probably in their 20s or 30s, rediscovering Islam.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Ugama school. And yes, we have like when we're adults, we have access to YouTube and all these like papers and stuff that we can read. But it often feels like we are catching up in the middle. From your personal experience, where would you suggest we start to look at if there's any specific like papers that you read or like some figures in the Muslim community that you followed for people to just find their like to reboot their system, so to start or restart?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We're at a time where we're so lucky in terms of what we can access on YouTube, the scholars that we have access to. And I think what will be right for, like, you might have friends go, oh, you've got to listen to this lecture, it's amazing, and you listen and go, oh, I didn't really connect. We're so blessed that there are so many different scholars and teachers out there. I think just for me, what I do is like I might hear a scholar or hear of a scholar, someone will say, listen to this lecture they did or this podcast or whatever. And if I like it, I'll just keep listening to more of them. And if it's not for me, then that's okay. There's so many more out there now. And also what I've noticed is that there might be some scholars or books or approaches that were right for me at a certain time. And then later in my, I've been Muslim for, I think, 27 years now. So it's a lot longer than I haven't been. And so different books, different scholars will feed me at different times. There have been some scholars that I've appreciated my whole journey. I think Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who is an American, is, I think, the most important scholar of our time. I think he's actually an American convert. He became Muslim at 17. His Arabic is phenomenal, flawless. Like, he's absolutely brilliant. I think I would listen to him talk on anything. He's really profoundly amazing, I think. There's been many males and females, and I think I'm also the type that I will learn from anyone. I will listen from anyone. If there's good in it, the truth is the lost property of the believer. I will just, I will take from it and get what's good from it. And if there's a scholar or a teacher, I'm like, maybe their method, they're too shouty for me or whatever, that's fine. It's not for me, but it is. Not everyone, some people like that approach, and we need to have that in our community. And some people are more softly, they want to hear about Rumi and holding hands, and that's fine. Like, we need all of that. We need
variety.
Because different things will speak to different people's hearts and where they are at the time. And I think just keep looking for different speakers whose approach cracks something open inside you. Would be that's what I do.
This is very like funny when I read it. Like, when you receive hate, you actually donate.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah.
I was like laughing when I read that. I was like, whoa, this is like so funny.
So it was when, this was back when Twitter was still Twitter. I was on Twitter and I noticed I had a lot of followers, heaps, tens of thousands. And I noticed that it didn't seem to matter what I said or didn't say, that I would get abuse on social media. I could say nothing. People would say horrible things about me being a Muslim woman. I could post a recipe and people would write mean things. And it didn't seem to matter how I responded. If I ignored them, it would persist. If I tried to engage them politely, it would persist. If I tried to fight back, it would persist. It didn't seem to matter what I did. And I was just feeling really frustrated by the intractability of this problem. Like, what do I do? You know, how do I handle this? What's the right? Nothing I seem to do seems to change this. And then I thought, well, maybe I need to stop thinking about how do I respond to them and my behavior being set by them, and think about, well, what do I want my behavior to be? If I set my behavior, how can my behavior be an expression of my values as opposed to a response to their approach? And so I thought, well, Quranically, it's repel evil with something better. And so I decided that for every horrible hate tweet that came to me, I would donate $1 to UNICEF, you know, the children's charity. Because it wasn't, the reason I felt that was a good thing to do is that it actually wasn't engaging them at all. It wasn't about them. There was it was simply an expression of my values, and doing something good, putting some sort of cosmic redress for all the negativity that they were putting out. I was putting something good into the world. So I decided to do that. And I didn't make a big thing about it, but some newspaper found out about it and wrote a story about it. And then
also, that's how
it came out, yeah. That I think the headline was a Muslim woman. That's what I was, Muslim woman.
Not even
didn't even have a name. Muslim woman donates $1 to charity for every hate tweet, and then other news. It just sort of became this story overseas. People in Turkey wrote about. I don't know. It became this big thing. And which ironically encouraged more hate tweets.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can't win, right?
No, you can't. Yeah. Which is why, So I was donating thousands to UNICEF at this point. At one point, my husband did say to me, "How much have we donated?" But what was the loveliest thing for me to see in all of this was that the number of people, Muslim and non-Muslim, people that I didn't even know, who would get in touch with me and say, I've sponsored your next 1,000 hate tweets. I've donated $1,000 to UNICEF. I've done it. Two people that I'd never met donated $1,000 to UNICEF on this. And that was what was really lovely for me, is that this is not a story about me. It's not at all. But the way I realized that when we live our values, when it seems absolutely absurd to do, that it can encourage other people. Like, I know I've been encouraged by other people doing good things and thinking, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to do that too. So we can do things that have a ripple effect as well if we stand with the values that we have and live according to them, even if it doesn't seem to make sense, even if it seems personally detrimental. It's not about the knee-jerk reaction to others. It's about an expression of who we are.
Yeah. And sometimes we're lucky enough to know, like, people, like, the person told you and that you were made aware that they donated in your name.
Yeah.
But imagine people that you don't know who did that, right? And
I think that's the case for all of us.
Yeah.
We don't know. You don't know the time you were walking down the street and you saw a poor person, you stopped and gave money, the influence that on the person behind you, or you doing this podcast, you don't know. None of us will know, not in this life anyway, the impact we can have. And that's part of, I think, living in a community, is being really aware that we are all influencers. It's just, is our influence good or bad? That's the choice that we make. How we behave in the car park. Did we cut someone off and yell at them because all of that? It's influence in every aspect of our lives.
People who are inspired by good influences are lesser known not highlighted as much than when people are influenced by you to do bad, usually, right? So I think that's why it's like, yeah, you were right. You just never know.
No.
Yeah, you just keep doing what you do.
Yeah, and obviously we don't do it. That's not the intention.
Yeah, that's not the intention.
It's just a happy side effect.
Yeah.
Or it can be a negative side effect if we do the wrong thing and we influence others that way too.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you consider are your weaknesses, and do you have any insecurities at all?
I mean, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have enough time. I fly home tonight. We need 15 weeks.
The major ones.
Oh, gee. I mean, so many weaknesses. I think, you know, I often say to my husband, I've been married 24 years. And I often say to my husband, I am your punishment in this life. I'm sorry, like, but just think of your reward in the next life, because I must be so hard to live with. Okay. So like, I have so many flaws is the point I'm trying to make. And okay. You know, God reward my husband for putting up with me for so long. You know,
like because of what you do?
No, it's just who I am as a person.
Okay.
Just who I am as a person. Very difficult to live with. You know, annoying, and there's so many things. I mean, I have my minor problems. I'm very messy. I have literally more than 72,000 unread emails. So if you email me, I'm probably not getting back to you.
Oh my!
I should show you how many unread texts I have. That's, you know, I just accept that is who I am as a person. And those are just the minor things. I think, of course, I have insecurities like everybody. Those things that just can plague us at all times. I can be impatient and impulsive. I can be ungenerous. You know, those are all things. And I think this is one of the things that I appreciate about having, you know, a faith system. Well, they're all religious systems, I think, do this, and spiritual systems, and Islam is certainly no different, is that it's a spiritual discipline that forces you to hold a mirror up to yourself. Islam asks something of us. And so it's, you know, the daily prayers, for example, I feel like are this real accountability that I know that I'm selfish and lazy and impulsive and all those things. And so always going, okay, how can I be better with this? How can I be better? You know, try again, try to always improve. That we should always be trying to work on ourselves.
I just had like something similar of a conversation with a friend last night, literally just last night, because I was reflecting on like some of the episodes that I've done, right? Like sometimes I do get worried when, like, you know, my intention is like to share like people's stories like yourself and my other guests, and also sometimes my story too, and like reflect on them. And it can probably sound like preachy, or it probably can make me sound like I'm better than everyone, because like, people should do this, people should do that, we should be more mindful. But I think I wanted to iterate, like I was like, I hope people understand that that's completely not the intention at all. It's like, it's having conversations like this that will remind us when we slip. Because we're all human. I don't think we're made to be perfect. Right? I think we're made to make mistakes, but it's how we deal after that is that matters.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I do want, again, like I hope like people understand that, you know, by having conversations like this, it's not to even shame people who make mistakes. It's like as a reflection. And like journaling is also good. Like again, you set up praying 5 times daily. It's also like, it's literally like holding a mirror to yourself.
Yeah, it's accountability.
Yeah, it's accountability. If you don't mind sharing, were there any slip-ups that you've done in the past that you probably have regretted, and then how you overcame it and what you learned from it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the ones that I'm probably the most conscious of and that I regret the most is that if I thought badly of others, or even like talked badly about them behind their backs, knowing how damaging that is and how unfair it is, and to really, because we all know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that. We all know what it's like when you find out that someone was talking badly about you behind your back, and you're like, but I thought we were friends, but that's such an unfair read of me. So knowing how that feels, like that's something I try really hard to not do, but I slip up all the time. It's so easy. And I think, you know, just socially, it's so easy just to fall into that. So much of the media we consume is just nothing but gossip and backbiting. So that's something that I carry really heavily and really try not to do, because I know how socially toxic it is. I know how personally toxic it is. Like, it's no self-confident, spiritually healthy person does that. So I know what an indictment it is on me if I have done that. I'm like, what's going on there? That's not about them at all. There's a problem here that I really need to address. And maybe that will be the work of a lifetime, is, you know, being conscious about not judging others and speaking badly about people behind their backs. And it's just something that I will try to work on, you know, as long as I can, and pull myself up. And I fail and I pull myself up, and I fail and I pull myself up. Yeah. And, you know, that's just one example.
And I like to think like we're all, I mean, for me personally, it's like, it's a constant work in progress, because every day it's so different. like the conversations that we have or people we meet, the experiences that we experience, the feelings we feel. It's a constant. I think also it's more fun that way. It's like an adventure. You don't know what the day will hold for you. You don't know how you react to certain things and what you say to people. But yeah, ultimately, it's like he writes our script.
You're right.
He knows the ending.
Yes.
Yeah, he knows how we deal with things, and we can always also turn back to him if anything, right?
That's exactly. I mean, there would be no point Allah having the name the most forgiving if there was nothing to forgive.
Yeah.
Like we have, us sinning manifests that beautiful attribute of Allah.
Yeah. What sort of first of all, are you open with your children? Do they know your story?
I was converted.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
because I mean they know my family's not Muslim, so they
Oh,
spend
right. Oh,
time
yeah,
with
yeah.
all my family. Yeah.
Okay.
So they know. They absolutely know that story. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a 22-year-old.
Yes, and an 18-year-old. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I know you shared about how you deal with them in terms of like you want them to choose Islam themselves as a parent and letting go, but what legacy do you hope to leave for them as a mother and also as a person of like the things that you do for the world?
It's so funny. I so rarely think about the legacy that I leave behind, which is probably a problem and a failing. Yeah. But also maybe it's because I don't think that I have done anything that would be remembered. And I don't mean that in a sort of I don't mean that in a false modesty where I'm just like, I'm just a regular person, you know, no one's going to build a statue of me. Like, and I feel really good about that. You know what I mean? So I think if anything that my like if I think about what I hope my children will remember about me, it's that they will remember the kind of mother that I was, and that they will, you know, getting back to what I was saying before, that they will remember me as a good example of a Muslim, that when they think about the Sunnah, they think about me. That would be the highest compliment they go, you know, my mum really implemented the Sunnah. You know, I saw her live that out in her life, in public and particularly in private. It's easy to look good in public, but they were the ones who lived with me behind closed doors when I was like, get ready for school, you know.
Yeah.
They saw the real human being as well. And I hope that, no matter what, that they will say that she was a really good example of a Muslim that I would want to emulate. She made me love Allah. That would be, and feel, you know, that I could always have a relationship with Allah. That would be, that would be the best outcome for me.
I want to say this again, like what you're doing is you're just not a normal person. I know you see yourself as that, but honestly, having conversations with you in such a limited time, like I feel so refreshed and so like rejuvenated in my faith as well. Like I'm so honestly grateful that we get to have this sit down, and I'm so also honored that I get to that this platform is able to be that for hopefully people who are watching. Yeah, and also what you do as like you know, empowering women in Islam, or actually just women in general. Yeah, it doesn't have to be Muslim women, but women in general too. Like your work, we in Brunei, we live in a bubble, but I hope that the world will find out more about you as well. Like honestly, and I do hope that you keep coming back to Brunei.
I would love to.
And speak to like, you know, more like young adults, people who are probably going through the same thing, like feeling lost in life, like worrying about yes, the world, because everything needs to have a balance, but like also finding reassurance in the afterlife and also in Allah.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's the most important thing.
100%. I know, because in the end, you know, Islam was sent to nourish us, to help us connect to Allah. It wasn't sent. In fact, Allah specifically says this in the Quran. The Quran was not sent to distress you. It should be this balm. Our religion should be something that when we're on the prayer mat, we just feel like, oh, thank goodness I'm here, as opposed to a chore or anything like that. And of course, our faith is going to go up and down. That's human nature. It was the same for the Sahaba. It was, you know, it would wax and wane like the Ramadan moon. That's normal. But so long as we just, for me, everything that happens in my life, the terrible, really difficult things that have happened and the beautiful things, I just see everything as Allah saying, I'm using this to bring you back to me. Everything that's happening is just an invitation for you to come back to me. So if I think about it like that, the hard, the easy, the good, the beautiful, the difficult, whatever it is, it's Allah saying, come here, come here, come here. Not in a horrible way, in like, I'm trying, come back, come back. Then suddenly life makes more sense and it's easier to do.
Before we end this, is there anything you want to say?
How about you and I start a podcast?
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Let's do it. I
Like
don't
a
know.
long distance
Yeah.
thing?
A Zoom podcast. I have no idea what the theme would be. Look, we can work that out later.
Yeah. Wait, you live in Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to Melbourne in October.
Okay, well, there we go. It's time
Yeah.
to start. I don't know what it is. We've got time to
Wait,
work that
are we,
out.
like,
We're going to
jumping-
work it out. It'll be a great international ASEAN cool podcast.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
All right. Great.
Wow, okay. Draft out the Fatin, you want to be my manager?
Great.
Actually, you know what? Okay, we'll talk after this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you for
I
having me.
really, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed your short stay in Brunei.
It's been amazing.
I really hope you come back and actually speak to more people. I don't want to be selfish and keep you all to myself.
Yeah, no.
I do feel like a lot of people, especially again in like the universities, like you need to meet all of them.
I
You
would
need
love
to
to. I would
speak
love
to
to.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, just come back.
All right. Well, can you
Yeah.
arrange that with the High Commission?
Sure. Yes, done deal.
You seem to have a lot of influence. See if you can make that happen.
I don't know about that, but I'm glad that you shared that with me. Yeah, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're done. Oh my gosh. I love that so much.